welcome to the Security Today podcast. I'm your host, Uncle Baer. We're back at it again for another episode of Bid2Bank, brought to you by Sprinter Business Solutions. You can check them out at sprinterit.com. They give me the time to do this and get into the Bid2Bank segments, which I'm so glad to be back into. We kind of had a hiatus there from March and April, but we're back in it again. And today we are welcoming on Robert Albert from Los Alamitos Locksmith in Los Alamitos, California, I believe. And we got him on here. I'm going to let Robert kind of walk you through him and his company and what he does, and then we will jump into the questions. If you haven't seen the segment before, thanks for joining for the first time. You got a lot to catch up on, but in the segment of Bid2Bank, we walk from the very beginning of the bid with marketing and sales, engineering and quoting. We get into project management and all the way to the bank of the customer's experience and how you maybe reinvest into your company. So we're going to get into all that today with Rob, and we will let you in on how he does things. So Robert, thanks so much for joining, man. I'm so glad you're here. Feel free to tell the people a little bit about who you are and your business, and we'll get right into the questions.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Uncle Baer. My name is Robert Albert, and I own a company in Los Alamitos, California, called Los Alamitos Lock Service. And the company itself has been around since 1955, just a traditional mom and pop lock shop, serving the community. You know, we got a front door, so we got to be quality service because you can walk in and come see us anytime. So we got to hold our standards. So, but I've been working there since I was 18 years old. I'm 37 now. A lot has changed in between all of that. So I've been in the service industry for locksmithing, for security, through all of that. So Los Alamitos Lock Service gave me a really good opportunity to have kind of a launch pad for me and my business to expand into security and expand into what the world of security is now today. So, I have a love for locksmiths. I am a locksmith, but we also do a lot of other things. Like I always say, the front door is the locksmith company and out the back is the security company. So our trucks roll out and we do everything and anything that you can think with security. I don't hold an alarm license, but if we get subcontracted out to put in, sensors and keypads and all that, contacts, so we'll do that. We'll do alarm. We'll do intercom. We'll do security camera, obviously, access control, obviously, any and all of it, man. Networked, IP, cloud, all that good, fun stuff that you don't think of when you hear locksmith. You might think of Bubba in the van, but no. I think the security platform is changing, and we're changing with it. So it's very cool to be here on your show. So thank you for having me. And thanks for giving
definitely,
me
man.
Chance to shout out, brother.
That's awesome. And I can tell you, so I didn't say this before we got started, but I actually started in locksmithing too about 11 years ago. I was a locksmith for 4 years, and then I ran my own van for 2 years. So locksmithing, I consider myself still a locksmith by trade. Someday in the far future, I'll have a company again and just roll around in a van and be an old locksmith curmudgeon. I can tell you, man, I love to hear that you're doing kind of both sides of security in that vein, because that locksmithing community, that locksmithing industry is pretty walled off, and it is in a kind of serious state of going by the wayside. Like we're losing a lot of locksmiths to the boomer generation that's exiting industries. And so, being able to do that set and also being able to touch the security, access control hardware, that sort of thing is exactly why I wanted you on here. And it's something that I really admire from locksmiths like yourself. And especially with a tenure of 19 years, man, you've seen it all. So
I don't know if I'm proud of it or if that's sad to me. It's a lot, you know what I mean? But it's been a long time.
No, that's good, man. And I bet, dude, and maybe we'll have time on this, but if not, we'll have to get back on here just for locksmith stories, because I can tell you, tell the listeners, if you don't know, if you're not in the locksmith industry, you don't get out 20 years of locksmithing without some crazy stories. So
when you get chased away from a front door with like a wood chair because you're trying to evict somebody, We'll just
Yeah,
leave it at that one
exactly.
for now. Yeah, we'll just leave it there.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
for sure. Just a teaser,
you
but
don't get that as
we'll
an
get
integrator,
into
you know?
yeah, yeah. Let's jump into the questions though.
Sure.
So we're gonna start in marketing and sales. So let me ask you this question from a marketing perspective, and maybe kind of primering this question,
Sure.
just kind of what marketing you typically do. But what is the most sold product or service that Los Alamitos or
Mm,
even the back of the house security that you guys put in?
for sure. I mean, if you're talking about, I don't know, there's kind of two ways to answer that question. Like, it's kind of a cheesy way to answer it, but the biggest product that we sell literally is our service. Like, we act as a subcontractor to a lot of the big integrator companies. And if any of them are listening, come talk to me. But
There you go.
we're a small company, and so we're really agile in that way. I don't have a lot of red tape. I don't have a lot of layers to talk to me. Between me and the end user, the me and the client, any of that kind of stuff. So it's really like the type of company that I have. We're small, but we're powerful, and so the thing that we do best and the thing that I sell is myself, is my team, and all that. But in the way of like what actual product physically that we're installing a lot of, it's access control and cameras more than anything. As a security company, as a locksmith company, that's just a weird question. Not a weird question, but a difficult
No, you're
question to
good.
answer, right? Because it's just everything. It's keys. I could say that we stress commercial and residential, right? So there's a lot of types of locksmiths out there. If people know that or not, some of those are just like the what I call the AAA locksmith. You're rolling around doing unlocking cars and doing key duplications for vehicles or originations or whatever. You get a lot of one guy in a van, and they're going to do a lot of that residential lockout type stuff. Some of those guys do commercial, but they kind of leave their signature when they try to do too much commercial. You get there and, like the wrong screws are used, or drilled a hole in something that didn't need a hole. So those are like kind of the unclassically trained type of locksmiths. And then you have all the way up to like institutional, right? So institutional locksmiths that do very dedicated systems for a college campus or a hospital. And so our company does basically a little bit of all of that. So it's a little bit of, you can get into a little fear of like, jack of all trades, master of none, but nobody finishes that statement, man. It's oftentimes many are better than one. So,
Yep.
yep. So we do a little bit of everything. We know where to stop. So if it's a system that I'm not familiar with or I'm not comfortable doing, like we don't unhang 9-foot Herculite doors. Just not going to do it. Not going to, drop that glass on my guy. We don't do door frames, right? Like, so we'll stop there and tell the door guy, or we don't do welding. So we're not going to fix fences and stuff, but there's not a lot that we don't do. I mean, I still impression keys like by hand. So I just made a key to a horse trailer like 2 days ago because I was walking through the shop and my guy was struggling, and I was like, "Here, move over. Let me show you how it's done." Just impressioned up a key in about 10 seconds, So, but in that same vein, right, we just sold a 45 camera, cloud-based recording system to a major box hardware store company. So just don't want to name any customer names. I don't know. But anyway, we just sold a big old camera system, 45 camera system that we're installing this week. So I'm telling you, I do everything from impressioning keys up to installing, complete surveillance systems for big box stores. Yeah. So
Yeah, the breadth of that is just got to be such a like a unique thing to your customer that that I'm sure that they're grateful for, that they can have like kind of a one-stop shop that they can go to if they have to play in this industry or this field when it comes to their site.
yeah, man, the thing that I caught on to pretty early on, because you can imagine 19 years of working in the industry, I wasn't a owner for all of those. I've actually owned this business for only 7 of those. And prior to that, I technically had to own my own company because it's okay to say it now, but I was like paid under the table for a while in those first 7 years, which is pretty common for a small family business type thing,
Yeah, sure.
And then I started needing to like report taxes, but he wouldn't hire me. I don't know. Long story short, I've worn the owner's hat for a while now, but I didn't always. But before I did, I started noticing things that helped shape me into the owner that I am today. and the business person that I am today, which is if I can't do the job, I'm still going to be a bridge to somebody who can. And so in doing that, I'm always trying to learn and I'm always trying to adapt. So I was able to connect somebody, like for instance, in the early days of like intercoms, I knew a phone guy, which was the first intercom people. We didn't have, security integrators doing intercoms yet. So we had, I knew a phone guy and I would connect him to the customer, but then I would go and sort of work with him to install that intercom so that I could do it myself next time. I'm very hands-on with learning. I'm very hands-on with my approach to customers and my approach to projects and things is I want to make sure that like my mark is left on it. Again, you can call my shop, walk in and I'm right there. So like, I can't really hide behind bad work. So
Yeah. And so
yeah.
with that breadth of like being able to do all of that and learning that as you grew up in the industry,
Yeah.
how do you market it? How do you is it all word of mouth or is it reoccurring customers or how do you gain those new eyeballs,
So as a local small business that's been around since 1955, I don't market, which is probably to the detriment of my shop during those slow months and stuff like that. But it's one of those things where like I've always called the lock shop styrofoam because it just won't sink. It'll just float at the very least. So we're just made of styrofoam, man. So there's always work in the pipeline. The phone rings every day. Customers walk in every day. I don't know what it is other than, just 70 years now, almost now of providing good service to the community. So I'm not the best person to ask about like this question is like, what do I do? I don't market locally. It's just the benefit of having a really, really old kind of small family business.
How did you grow the security side of it when you kind of shifted into that from locksmithing?
So I'm really good at networking and I'm really good at sales. Like as far as my approach, the way I'm talking to you is the way that I'm going to talk to a customer, just relaxed, comfortable. But because of my experience, it's also, there's confidence behind everything I say because I don't lie to people. I don't, oversell myself. I don't overpromise, underdeliver on anything. I tell people up front, if I can't do it for you, I'm going to find the guy to do it. And so in doing that, it's really network based. And I think there's something to that. I mean, if there's a way that I market and advertise, it is me. Like this is the marketing department. So every time an opportunity comes my way with a new customer, and by customer, it could either be a business or it could be an integrator or it could be a general contractor or an electrician or anybody. When new comes my way, I see sales opportunity. And so what I look at is how can I develop that customer? How can I add value to that customer or that person or that client or that whatever it is, right? So yeah, I've gotten hit up before as, hey, we have a big job going on in your area. Actually, funny enough, this is how I got started with maybe a story for later, but a big integrator, national integrator that wanted to work with me and then ultimately hired me for a year. And now I'm back to my shop and I'll just leave that right there. But the first thing they ever said was, we have a technician who's nearby. We see that you're a shop. Do you have an electrified mortise lock? And maybe the normal person would just say, yes, I do. Come get it. Or sure, I can sell it to you. But me and how I work is I do. Would you like me to install it for you? And the answer was actually, yeah, that'd be great. Like he's not really familiar, so I just kind of like put one foot in the door, just kind of to see if they'll let me in. And more often than not, because of my knowledge, my ability to communicate, my knowledge to other people and like translate that to them, they feel comfortable. And yeah, so as long as I'm not, talking out of my rear end and I know what I'm talking about, like I can pretty much kind of sell myself on those types of systems and those types of, integrator subcontract deals and things like that. So
yeah. And I really hear that, I like that you were like, this is the marketing department.
yes.
I think that I try to get these questions to get things out so that the listeners who are also running a business can listen in and be like, oh yeah, that's a good thing to remember, or I should implement that.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is like, it's your face, it's your technician's face that are out there in front of the client. That is a major part of your marketing.
Yep.
And I also think that it's good to note that you said, using your experience, you let the confidence stand behind
Correct.
the honesty of the conversation, and people feel that. People can listen to that and listen to your tone of voice, see your body posture, and be like, oh, this guy's legit. He's not gonna screw me, or I'm in good hands. So that's those are all really good things. So moving from kind of that marketing and kind of being that face of the company and not being able to hide much, because if you walk in your shop, you're standing there. When you win those jobs and people are like, okay, I do want you to go out and install, this mortise locks, electrified mortise lock, or, this is that 45 camera job. What's the next step to that? Once you've won the job, you go into quoting and engineering, kind of what you need to do, and what do you use for that?
Awesome. So yeah, once we get the job, right, we essentially a lot of the engineering is done on the front end, because depending on the job, unless it's a single mortise lock swap or hinge swap or something, we want to build out that project before we quote it, obviously. For me, that process starts with the walkthrough. I think a lot of big integrators miss the mark on this. I think a lot of small companies miss the mark on this. Again, I had experiences working within a national integrator for a while, and I've been the subcontractor to tens of integrators over the last 4 or 5 years, especially 7, 8 years too, but really heavily in those last few years. They just see a door on a map. Sometimes they don't go and visit the door. They don't ask for photos. I'm like annoyingly asking people for photos, door hardware schedules, like give me anything, right? Because all they want to say is there's 4 doors and I need access control on 4 doors. And with you and your experience as a locksmith, you and I both know that can be 4 very different applications, right? The front door, the office door, the warehouse door, and some other door. It doesn't matter, but so a frameless Herculite door versus a storefront, narrow style versus wide style. Again, right there, you've got 2 lock options. Steel door, wood door. Is it fire rated? Is it 7 foot? Is it 9 foot? We want panic bars. Well, how do you need a vertical rod extension kit? All of that kind of stuff is like where I start on my walkthrough, on my survey. So all that to say, the engineering component of it happens before the bid is accepted, because I only want to give a customer one number. I don't want to hit them with change orders. I don't want to hit them with, I don't want to get hit with change orders that they can't approve, and I just have to eat the cost of. If, hey, the contract said this, you got to give me that. That's what it is, right? I don't have a choice, so sometimes you end up eating it. And that still happens today, but I try to mitigate that as much as possible at the very least, with doing that on the front end. And so,
do you have with those photos, do you have something that you put them into, or is it pretty much you bring them back on your phone, or how's that work?
No. I try to keep my guys from doing that, my techs that walk, and myself as well, from doing it, just putting it on your phone, because it's easy and convenient. But we use Google, so like our whole platform is Google. Awesome. So as a tool, so between Gmail and then Google Drive, and then Google Calendar is what we use, which is the benefit of being so small, is all my techs can go on Google Calendar, get their own color, and we all fit on there. I don't have 50 technicians, so like all I need is like 5 different colors and we're good. But the program that we use for surveys is called Google Keep. So Keep is essentially notes, right? Like you have notes on your iPhone and stuff like that. And so what happens is you end up, here, let me see if this might translate for you. I'll pull up Keep real quick.
Yeah.
Right. So here's Keep Live, if you can see it. There you go. Right. And this is basically what I have is walkthroughs and jobs, and you see photos of locks and photos of doors. And so, I hope that was okay. But
no, that looked great.
Cool. So it's really helpful, because now as soon as I'm taking the photos live, there's the notes section down below. I can attach things to it. But it's instantly saved. It's cloud-based, right? So I can be on the job still, and I can call back to the office, and he can pull up Google Keep on his computer and immediately start working on a proposal. And or if I'm working from home for the day, or my technician's out in the field, whatever, right? Like all the way up to when we go to the install. If I want to know, wait, was it this door or that door? I can pull that photo up on my phone. My technician can pull that photo up on his phone and have that visualization. And there's even a little thing where once you take the photo, you have an option to like draw on the photo. So I've used that before, where I've drawn conduit pathway. I've circled the side that we're going to do the lockout, like hinge to box. You know what I mean? You can just like draw all that out. Again, because when you're there at the door and when you're in that moment of being on site, a lot of people miss that opportunity to just capture that information and that data. So that's huge for us. Is like I'm super heavily front loaded on getting information, getting data, and accurately proposing systems and jobs and building out the job, even before it gets accepted. So.
Yeah. And I mean, you're 100% right. And that goes just beyond the locksmith. That's the security industry. That access control door survey is something that is a craft, and it's hard to master, because especially when you get a tech, or you're letting a tech do it for the first time, that you can't be there, it's like you're getting guys out there and you can get photos out of them, but it takes that learning of that craft to know that these are the types of photos that I need to kind of streamline that process.
Yep.
And there's a lot of like softwares, like you said, like Google Keep. At Sprinter, we use FieldWire. And so there's things that you can like throw those photos into, but it's like while you're there at the door, that craft is something that, I don't know that there's like a software that fixes that. That's like on the job training.
Well, I'll tell you this is the other benefit of that instant upload, right? So I don't need to be on these surveys to know what photos to take. I have my technician do his whole survey, and then he calls me and he's like, hey, did I miss anything? Do you want to see any additional photos? And again, it's instant. So I pull up Keep, there's his photos, and I can look through and go, oh, that door right there, I need to see this side, open it up and check if there's a fire label on it. Or I'll get photos sent, from an integrator, and they'll be like, hey, I need you to run wire to this door. And it's a photo of the door. It's like, great, that's awesome. I know that we can put a panic bar, we can put electrified, whatever, electric strike, whatever. But you just asked me to run the wire to the door. So where am I running it from? What's above that photo? So that's another big miss from integrators as well, is like getting a wire point A to point B. When you look down on a drawing, it's like, oh, it's right here. And then you go here and that's it. But if it's a vaulted ceiling, if it's a hard lid ceiling, if it's those old ceiling tiles that you have to find the little pin and take apart, puzzle piece. I don't know if you ever seen those, but
I've seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like those are a nightmare. And I need to charge double for that wire run if I got to do that and spend 6 hours running a 100-foot cable,
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so when you get all that information and then you kind of figure out what you need, when it comes to the bidding of the job, is there a method or approach, or do you kind of have just a flat template? This is how we bid every job. What's that look like?
Every job is sort of custom. I try to template it out as much as I can, but again, I'm looking through a different lens. So I think the template approach, again, is what gets people in trouble. You get too used to access control door means electric strike, then you forget that access control door should be panic bar because of a capacity, or should be fail safe because of a stairwell. Like, so yeah, I do use a pretty basic format for budgeting. So if somebody approaches me and they're just like, I just need a big number, let's go ballpark. Typically I use about 3 hours per camera, 4 hours per door. Is just basic. Like if I got, and that's installed. So in a simple little office setup, you got 4 cameras and 2 doors. I'm going to charge you 12 hours to run the wire and hang the camera in position and program. So there's 4 cameras at 3 hours each, and the doors take a little bit longer. I got to drill something. I got to drop them down the wall. There's that extra hour of labor. 2 doors is 8 hours, so there's 20 hours on the project. And then for me, I kind of look at things also in blocks of days too. So yes, I can sell you 20 hours, but that we work 8-hour days, right? That's kind of how the world works. So to me, 20 hours is 24 hours because I can't fill the other 4 hours of my day with like, I can't pivot to another project. You know what I mean? So I just kind of lump that in there. I'm not one to use individual units of measurement on a proposal. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm using 17 hours here. So like, I'm just going to say that the project is this many hours. I typically split my project pricing into 2 line items. Obviously I itemize to tell them what they're getting materials wise, and then I tell them what we're doing labor wise. But here's your materials price and here's your labor price. And so here's your project. That's it, because too many people emphasize the wrong thing when they look at labor hours, right? They emphasize the number of hours. Not a lot of people do this, but oftentimes if they say, hey, you quoted me 16 hours, but you guys finished in a day. If I put that on the proposal, then they sort of have a leg to stand on in saying, yeah, you're right, I didn't spend those hours. But to me, they're looking at it the wrong way. And there's a lot of, there's like whole TED Talks about this, right? It's like,
yeah,
you should be happy that I finished in a day. Like your system's up, You approved the pricing. If you were comfortable at a 16-hour install, that price made sense to you and was worth the install to you. So if maybe I doubled my crew because we were slow and I knocked it out in a day. Maybe I'm just really good at my job and the normal person would take 16 hours to do it, but you got an all-star on site and we knocked it out in a day. So, it goes back to that whole thing of, pricing and valuing time. A really easy example of that is like picking open a door for a locksmith, right? It's the easiest thing. So trip charge plus a pick open. No, I'll definitely preach all day because people they want to, dude, that took you 5 minutes. How are you? And just a round number, I won't really spell out my pricing for everything, but let's just say it's $100, right? To pick open a door. I've literally gone to a customer's door in my old, technician locksmith days, walked up, first rake, it turned over and I opened the door. That'll be $100.
Yeah. James Bond,
Oh, yeah. And they're just like, oh my God. They think it's like the movies, like every lock is that way. And of course you let them think that, you're just like, yeah, I know. But there's certain people that are super appreciative, for that. And then there's other people who are just like, well, that took you, that only took you 5 minutes. And it's like, no, it took me 15 years, right? Like I learned how to do this. I know it's like which button to press, you know what I mean? Like you got to know which button to press. Otherwise you're going to blow the whole place up. So
yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And I think, you're preaching a lot of value there to, see yourself for the time that you're valued for and stand on that because you're doing good work. And there is so much, and this could be a whole nother podcast on when you're running your shop or when, you're running your own job that it is such a personality thing that you're working on yourself a lot more than you're actually working on the door, so
1,000. Yeah, man.
That's awesome. Yeah. So when you get that job and when it ends up, they're like, okay, yeah, I want it, put it in. What's the next, what's the first 3 steps you usually take into a job project management wise? You collect up front or do you start ordering or how's that all look for your outfit?
Yeah. So for me, I really try to avoid doing it. I guess depends on the job. But I really try to avoid carrying debt for a job. So I'm always trying to get materials up front. Technically contractor law states, especially in California, I don't know how it is in other states, but I can't ask you for all of the material up front, right? As a contractor, I can get a 10% deposit on the whole job and we can establish progress payments and then set turn, all of that good stuff. But I'm a small business and I'm very relationship based. So I utilize that in working with clients and oftentimes I get it. So it's not illegal to ask for it, right? It's illegal to demand it. You can't say you have to pay me this before that. That's not how contracts work. But on the front end, I always say, hey, basically the way that I sell it is, you buy your materials. So you pay for it there. Now it's yours. And then you don't have to pay me for the labor until it's done and you're happy. And I stress the and you're happy portion of it at the end, because if I'm not done, if the job's not done, you can still hold that labor cost, against me. And almost typically it's like half the job. So it's worth it to me to finish that project quickly, effectively, get you a working system and make you happy so that you buy another one from me or you tell your friend about me. I've found probably 9 times out of 10, it's not a big deal. HOAs we work with constantly, especially as a locksmith company, right? And now a lot of those HOAs are switching to access control. They're installing security cameras on the pools, on the main gates, license plate detection, all that stuff. Time and time again, here's your invoice for parts. As soon as you give it to me, I deposit that money. When that money clears, I use that money to buy your parts. Once your parts are in, I will contact you about, getting on site, scheduling install and all that, and I'll give you a timeline for that. We try to be really careful about promising timelines to people, because parts delays can happen. Wrong parts can get sent. So that goes back to trying not to overpromise and underdeliver. I like to underpromise, overdeliver. So if I get a 2 to 3 week timeline for parts, sometimes I'll tell my client, hey, in 3 to 4 weeks, these parts will come in, and then we'll reach out. And so they have this expectation of that delay already. And then it comes in 2 weeks and we call them, hey, they came in a little early, we're ready to go. And now we look great. So kind of just having that mindset all the time, right? Of trying to keep that image, not like fake an image, right? But just keep that image in somebody's mindset. As an owner, like I want them to think that we're doing the best we can for them, because we really are. But more often than not, sometimes you'll do your best and people still want to, just kind of tell you could do better, I guess. But
yeah,
I think I'm.
How do you balance multiple? Yeah, how do you balance multiple jobs at once? Is there tools that you use or resources, or what does that look like?
Like on your head, like this. You just kind of hold them. You just
spinning plates.
Yeah, spinning plates. It's a cool trick. I'll show you. Yeah. So we have. This kind of ties in with the other question too, of like how we prepare for jobs. So we have it's very old school. I mean, we use a lot of new technology and stuff, but sort of sometimes at the end of the day, like a printed piece of paper on the wall just does wonders, because we have an office and we see each other, so we can go and stand in front of that thing and look at it and go, oh yeah, and it's not tucked in a folder somewhere on a computer, not in front of me. But we use, I want to say it's a type of Gantt chart basically, but it's essentially just a progress chart on a pin board, on a big cork board in the office. It's really big. It's like 4x8, and we split it into progress on a job. So we have, quote sent, we have quote accepted, waiting on deposit. We have parts to be ordered, parts on order, literally like kind of every step. So to be scheduled. Once the parts are in, it goes to be scheduled. Once it's to be scheduled, work in progress, and then finished to be invoiced. So we just move it as it comes, and it's a really nice visual indicator of where things live. It works for us. It may not be, the best for everybody, especially if you're a bigger company and you have different branches or people working from home. But for us, again, being small and agile, and that's kind of one of the benefits of being small and agile, is like we get to be in the room together talking about the jobs and things like that. So yeah.
Do you find that is really beneficial for your technicians to be able to see? Because I think that in some security integrators outfits, they, when they get bigger, like you said, they kind of start to silo. And so the technician just shows up and is pointed where to go. But if the technician could see the whole scope of it, then I feel like that might even ease frustration, because they know that there's 3 jobs going on right now, not just this one.
Yeah, there's a whole other like conversation that we could have of like scaling up too big. And again, the year that I spent with the national integrator was just chock full of red tape and silos all around, man. It was just like, and that happens way too often, right? The integrator just is given a box of parts and a box of cable, and here's the address, and sometimes not even here's your contact. So you get there and you're like, okay, I'm here now, but who do I reach out to? And I don't know. For me, we hold morning meetings almost every morning. But if if we're busy and the job's ongoing, you're in the middle of it, we obviously don't need to hold a meeting about it. But we keep everybody in the loop on all things because there's just not that many of us. We're a shop right now of 7 people. So, and they want to know, the technicians want to know, right? Like a good technician wants to know what he's getting into, and he wants to know what the scope of the job is and how you got there and where you're going with it. Because really at the end of the day, I've dealt with these technicians that are thrown into the fire like that of being unknown. And it's just frustrating because they have to pivot. They have to fix it. They're stuck on site till 4 or 5 p.m., wrapping an install that has to be done because the front door can't lock until you're done. And all that delay of the morning, figuring out who the contact is, where the door is. Oh, it's the wrong part. Run to the distributor, grab the right part and come back. Or, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff is, in one regard, it's like I'm the technician. It's not my problem, but oftentimes it is the technician's problem. So yeah, I keep my techs in the loop for sure on all aspects of it. I want them to learn too. So one thing that I ran into was a lot of this, like, that's not your job, so don't worry about it. Like engineering, I don't need to talk to a technician. That was very strange to me in the big national integrator world of a salesperson going out to do an install. They're all over the place out there, so no offense to you salespeople, but like they usually don't know what they're selling or what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like they've never installed a lock on a door before. So to me, and this, like I said in the beginning too, like I'm the marketing department, I'm the sales, so is my technician. So it would make so much more sense to me if these people would trust their technicians, train their technicians, hire better technicians if you need to, but use your technician as your sales team too. Like send a technician out for a survey and then let your technician work with the engineering department. We tried to do that in building a branch for this company, and it was really tough because again, when you scale up and scale big, I guess I understand the need for different departments and things like that because you do have 50, 70, 100, who knows how many jobs going on at once. But you also have there was a procurement department. And so it was this really weird thing where like one guy would go and survey and he'd give it to this other person, and this person would engineer the thing that he looked at. And then the engineer would give it to this person who would be the project manager, and they would decide, how they're going to go ahead and get the parts and schedule the things, and then give it to a procurement department who would order the parts. And then it would end up, back in the project manager's hand who would schedule the install. And then it finally would hit a technician. And after all of that time, which is usually weeks, honestly, when it shouldn't be weeks, but all of that time, all of those people's salaries and pay and all the decisions, all that good stuff, then the box of parts would get to the technician and he'd be like, oh, this is the wrong part. I can't, why'd you get me an electric strike? This is a Herculite door or something. Like, so I saw it so many times and it was so frustrating. So if any integrator is listening, please heed my advice and listen to your technician. They're not just dummies in a van, and if they are, get a new one. I don't know what to tell you. Like, stop working with that guy.
That's some of the mission of the podcast, man, is just because I do a lot of interviews and I do a lot of like conversations, even offline, with security industry leaders that are on that more white collar side. And then I do stuff like this, and I just feel like there's so much value that isn't getting communicated. There's like this big chasm between that and between the technicians. And it's like the technician could use, theory and method and all these other things that engineers and white collar people play in, and they could all, understand what a boot on the ground is going through, and it would just make the whole industry better. So awesome. I can share that passion for sure. But you said at the very beginning when we were talking marketing about you're selling a service. Right. And so that kind of comes full circle to the customer experience. Can you talk to the listeners a little bit about, one thing that you feel is maybe most important when it comes to that customer experience from your perspective?
Sure. There's a lot of things that are really important, all of it, right? The whole customer experience is pretty important. With regard to a relationship, from an integrator to a customer, locksmith to a customer, anybody. it really starts with how you answer the phone. It really starts with how you approach a sale. You know, if you're not friendly, if you're difficult to get a hold of, all that good stuff on the front end, they're less inclined to work with you. If you're overselling, like I've gotten really good at the habit of like selling people what they need. Once they get what they need, then you can suggest your add-ons and all that, but just not overselling. I think that kind of first experience with the customer lasts forever. That's how I've gotten residual work from people. It's how I've gotten recurring work and referrals and all that stuff. But then same thing with your technicians. Like, again, if you don't have good technicians, train them, pair them with the good person. So my technicians get on site, and the way that they look, the way they're dressed, the way they smell, you know, like the way they are rude or not rude to people, all of that comes back to that whole customer experience. So, you know, we have sort of a dress code and a uniform for these guys. We keep our vans clean, like put them through the car wash and things like that. Like all of that stuff just reflects the company as a whole, gives people confidence that they've hired the right people. And then really the biggest thing though, that because any customer will deal with all that on the front end. Maybe the guy was rude, maybe the technician's butt crack was showing and he smelled like cigarettes, and like, okay, whatever, but does my system work? And so that to me is the biggest takeaway, is that comes from giving the client what they wanted from the beginning. So I just try to sell systems to the type of client. So if it's, again, residential and you're like, I want an intercom on my front door, here's a Ring doorbell. You know what I mean? It doesn't cost you a lot of money. I'll install it and set it up so it works really well for you. And I'll train you on all the bells and whistles, you know, of the Ring system. But for instance, we have a special needs facility that we just did in the city of Long Beach that they need a handicap, push buttons on all these doors, and they want intercoms because of their access control as well. So, you know, they needed multiple people to answer one intercom, and those people are all throughout the facility, and they're always working hands-on with their clients. So we went with an IP-based system with a 2N intercom, IP Solo, and we just told them about, you know, the 2N solution that they can get on their mobile phone, and call out to as many people as they want, scale up to as many phones as they want to put on that system. And because that solution worked really well and it was perfect for them, they said, we actually want this on 3 other doors, and we actually have 4 other facilities all throughout, you know, the county of LA. And this is perfect. Thank you so much for the solution. So, you know, I didn't give them a Ring doorbell because it's Wi-Fi based and it doesn't have a door release button, you know, integrated into it. And just there's so many reasons, right, why in a commercial setting the IP Solo works. And 2N is great. Shout out to 2N. Love that company.
They're good.
Yeah, they're awesome.
And
yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that you said, and what reminds me, so on an early Bid2Bank, when I started doing these, I had a guy named Mick from Trican Security out there in Baltimore. And one of the things that he said is exactly that. He was like, I asked the customer at the end of the job, is this what you wanted? Not just, does it work, or, right, you know, thanks, here you go, here's the bill. He asked the question, is this what you wanted? And that's right in line with what you were saying. Because I think a lot of times we get away from it as kind of the guys who know the technology. We know what they need. You know, we kind of come in there with maybe that perspective or lens, and that's off-putting because, yeah, we do know what they need. They called us, but at the same time, they don't want to feel like, right, you're going to come in and, you know, look down on them for not knowing. They know more about handling special needs clients than you do. So it's not like they're looking down on you, you know? So yeah,
a lot of sales is just listening, man. It's really just like, if people would just shut up and stop selling to people and instead just sell them the thing they came shopping for, you know, like it would just be to their benefit, because when you give somebody something they want, and then you offer the way that solution can be even better than they imagined it, that's going to work so much better than like, yeah, I know you only want a Ring doorbell, but yeah, here's an IP intercom that's so much better because X, Y, and Z. You know, I don't know. It's just so much better to listen to somebody and give them exactly what they want. Because like I said, I'm more focused on the long-term relationship with that client. And once I give them the first thing and it works really well, I've sold that product. I've sold that service to them. I've sold myself to them. And so now everything is almost an open door policy. It's, hey, Rob, I love this thing you did. I want this here. I want that there. Then I can give my solution, and then they trust me. You know what I mean? And then you can sell and sell and sell from there, but still giving them what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, building that trust before just handing them the full package of what you know that they need is that's central. So once once you've kind of won that, and they're asking you for, here's 4 more locations and things like that, and you're kind of raking in the profit margin from that, how do you turn around and invest that into your company? Or what does that usually look like?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. Like, getting that money turned back into the company is necessary if you're trying to scale really big. If you're trying to advertise, if you're trying to add a truck, add more employees, right? So a lot of times the money that we make goes back into the engine, so to speak, to kind of keep growing. But for me, I've done the growth pattern. I've gotten as many as 10 people on board at a time, which is not a lot. I realize it's not a major scale, but when you're sort of in that small to mid category, like the difference between 10 employees and 15 even, the number of people, the number of trucks, all that changes. So for me, personally, and as an owner, it's most important to me that the business is just alive and healthy. I'm not really trying to scale it exponentially. I pay my guys well, and we do all the packages that you would want and need with benefits. I give plenty of time off and vacation and all that. So it's not to say that I don't do well for myself within the company, but I think that a lot of that income is dispersed, and I do that intentionally because I don't want to go through multiple technicians year over year. I don't want turnover.
Right.
So, we go out every 3 quarters. We call it the pancake breakfast. It's just a fun name that we give to like going out for beers and tacos. So I treat my guys really well to, like a quarterly dinner kind of thing. We go all out for Christmas, invite your wives, girlfriends, whatever. Yeah, man, I don't know what to say about where the money goes other than we try to spread it around and spread the love if we can.
Yeah.
And then, I work really hard, so I got to take a little off the top too. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why you have your own business, for certain. But I think that is pretty key, to take care of the technician. And, that seems like it's easy to say in the industry, like, oh yeah, take care of the technician. It is a balance when you're running your own, shop and your own facility. And it's even more difficult to find companies that like actually do it. So that's another reason that I have you on here. I mean, I curate these things pretty tightly because I want people to see people who are doing it correct, because it only helps the industry, but it is very important to take care of that technician. I mean, being a technician for, 8 or 9 years, and then, coming into a company where we have several technicians and I know them all, as friends, it's like, you got to take care of those people for certain.
Yeah, I get it that it's tough, especially on a larger scale. You get to getting people certified and spending all these thousands of dollars on, whatever, milestone, software house certifications, all these different things. And then that technician just takes those certifications and goes to the next highest bidder. I absolutely understand where that gets trickier. But to me, it's if you take better care of that technician on the front end, work with them, give them what they need, which people don't need a whole lot. They just need to be understood and appreciated. You're going to have a lot better longevity with that technician. And somebody who's been working with you for 10, 15 years is going to be so much more effective than that year-over-year turnover, just because you don't want to give more benefits or you don't want to give, whatever's necessary. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. So moving on from that, this is my favorite question of the podcast because I love seeing just how people can continue to grow on themselves. But it's called the humbling question. What's one area in that Bid2Bank process that maybe you feel like Los Alamitos is soft on, or would like to, see more robustness around, or something like that?
So I hate to admit it, but it's contracts, because I get too comfortable. And I've learned my lesson, and I probably should have learned my lesson even more so, but we get really comfortable with working with an integrator that has given us hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 5 years or more, and really trustworthy people. And the reality is that those people can even get themselves into a bind too, and do. And unfortunately, we've had instances where we just didn't get paid because we agreed to work within a certain set of terms, and they're smaller. They're not some big operation, big national company. It's like I work with GCs and I work with electricians and things like that, and so you perform work for somebody just kind of based on their word, and something fell through, and I didn't get paid yet for this, so I don't have any money to give you. And so we've had nothing major, but $5,000 here, $10,000 there of just goes into the bad debts account because they don't pay. And so that's on me 100%. It's like ashamed to admit it a little bit, but the reality is, yeah, if you don't get your contracts in place and you don't put your lien notices out in time, or either the notice out or the lien, on the back end, especially in the state of California, it's brutal for us, man. You got nothing to stand on other than I'm going to go unplug your system, and that's not legal.
Yeah. That's hard, because I feel like that comes with the balance of how relational you are with your customers, with your clients, because you want that relationship that leads to ultimately a better experience at the end of all of it than it would have been if you wouldn't have poured into it. But it is hard to, and that's, I think, across the board, because we've suffered with that in the past at Sprinter. And so it's just like, you kind of get in there and they ask for a little more because they need it, but it doesn't ever come to the table in writing. And so now it's like
change
in
orders,
this gray area.
We've strayed away from that at the very least. I know that we stick to our guns on that. Like, I at the very least need a paper trail. Like if somebody says, can you add this? Can you add that? Or they text you, they call you. Sure, no problem, man. But you need to email that to at least just show the paper trail that somebody asked for it. We'll work on the document and say, I'll go do it, but I need you to email it right now.
Yeah.
Because that always happens, right? You get on site, while you're here. It's what they call it, while you're here.
Yeah, the while you're here. So after all of that, then I guess the big bonus question is based on your experience, which is awesome, and thanks so much for lending us your time to give it. But
for sure,
moving from the whole job, from the bid to the bank, can you kind of reiterate what you feel like the focus is most critical when on the job, when you get that whole job in scope? What's the most critical point in that bid to bank process?
It's a good question, man. It's all critical, dude. It's all. I don't know, man. I mean, the most critical point is, like I said, I think the beginning. I think it's laying that foundation for every job. So I'll just stick to that answer from earlier. If you get your details ahead of time, if you do your homework, some people don't want to do it because it's 4 or 5 hours to build a quote that may not happen. And so I think a lot of the big integrators get stuck in that. They're putting too many quotes out. They got to reach their sales quota. So everything's just like, boom, 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 boom. Put all these proposals out, and man, so many jobs just tank and they go under. And so because you didn't bid the right thing, or you missed a door, you missed the wrong part, or whatever it is, man, if you don't lay that foundation and if you don't do your homework on the front end, it doesn't matter what's important to you after that. If it's not going to go well after that, then what's the point of finishing it in the first place? So just,
no, that's excellent. Man, wonderful. So I want to take a minute, and I do this with a lot of the guests that I get on here, but like, how can, number one, people find you who are in California who might need some work done? And then how can like other guys get a hold of you if they have questions, or if they want to follow your stuff or anything like that?
Yeah, awesome, man. So I'll just direct everything to the lock shop, because that's the easiest way, no matter what kind of service we're doing for you, big integrator work or mom and pop key work. So Los Alamitos Lock Service is the name of the company. Lock Service, not locksmith, not lock and key. We're very proud of our service. So Los Alamitos Lock Service, and the website losalock@losalock.com is the email, but losalock.com LOSALLOCK. There's two L's in the middle. Everybody asks, so I'll just tell you right now, there's two L's in the middle. Yeah,
Yeah.
lostoutlock.com, man. And, check us out on Yelp. Check us out on Instagram. I should have had that pulled up, but my wife runs the Instagram. But
No, you're good.
look for this
It's a
space
good
on
looking
there.
Instagram, man.
It's that one. I think it's at Los Out Lock. I'm pretty sure we're the only one. But
It is. It is.
oh,
I
my man.
checked it out. Yep.
My man.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
I actually followed it like
Oh, nice.
10 minutes before we got on. I was like, oh yeah, Instagram. I got to get on.
Appreciate
It looks great.
Thank you, bro. I'll let Tiana know.
But yeah, man. Hey, thanks so much for coming on. And I really appreciate it, guys. If you're on Instagram, go check out Los Al Lock and follow what they're doing over there. And I know that people are pulling good information from this episode. So thank you, man. Thank you for your time.
Hey, I know how you start your episodes too. I love that. So I'm gonna give a shout out to my musician friend Kelsey with the Free Nationals.
Do it. Yeah.
If you don't know Free Nationals, check them out. And shout out to my wife Tiana. She kind of really runs the show. So I love you, babe. Thank you.
They always do, man. They always
buddy.
do. So
All right.
well, thanks so much. We'll see you next time, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, man.